You ever wonder why a truly brilliant, world-changing idea is so often met with, well, ridicule and scorn? It's a surprisingly common and honestly, a very dangerous human tendency that we're going to dive into. I mean, it's a really baffling question, isn't it? You'd think that a discovery with overwhelming proof, one that could literally save lives, would be embraced immediately. But history and even really recent events tell a completely different story. Just think about this for a second. For almost 2 years, while the entire world was grappling with a pandemic, the World Health Organization was focused mainly on droplet transmission. This was happening even as the evidence for aerosol spread was just piling up. So why the delay? It's a perfect modern example of a psychological glitch that we need to talk about. To really understand this glitch, we have to go back in time. So let's travel back to the 19th century and meet a doctor who stumbled upon a discovery so simple and so profound that the medical establishment literally tried to destroy him for it.
Okay, so this is Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis. In 1847, he's working at a hospital in Vienna where new mothers were dying at a terrifying rate from something called childbed fever. But here's the really weird part. It was happening almost exclusively in the ward run by doctors, not the one run by midwives. In the doctor's ward, a horrifying 18% of mothers were dying. Think about that. That's nearly 1 in 5. The word was so feared that women would literally beg to be sent home, saying they'd rather give birth in the streets than face those doctors. Semmelweis obsessed over this problem until he had a huge breakthrough. He noticed one key difference. The doctors would often come straight to the maternity ward right after performing autopsies in the morgue. He put 2 and 2 together and hypothesized they were carrying cadaverous particles on their hands. His solution was radical for the time, but so simple. Just wash your hands with a chlorin solution between patients. And the result? I mean, it was absolutely staggering. The death rate plummeted from 18% all the way down to less than 3%. He was saving lives. He had the hard data to prove it. He had solved the mystery. You would think he'd be celebrated as a hero, right? I mean, statues built in his honor. Instead, he was mocked, he was fired, and he eventually died in an asylum. His discovery pretty much ignored for decades. Why? How could that happen? This quote from a leading obstetrician at the time, it just says it all. The rejection wasn't about science. It was about identity. It was about ego. The idea that a gentleman's hands could be dirty and spread disease was a deep personal insult. It went against everything they believed about themselves. So this completely irrational rejection of new evidence, just because it contradicts what we already believe, well, it has a name. And it's named after the very doctor who suffered from it. Let's break down the anatomy of this mental reflex. This is the Semmelweis Reflex. And it's not just about being stubborn, it's an almost automatic, gut-level rejection of facts that just don't fit into our worldview. And, it turns out, it's powered by a few very predictable quirks in the way we think. The Semmelweis reflex isn't some mysterious force, It's actually the product of several well-documented cognitive biases. These are like mental shortcuts our brains use that can seriously lead us astray. So at the time, the big medical theory was the miasma theory, the idea that diseases were caused by bad air. Semmelweis's whole idea of invisible cadaverous particles being passed by touch just didn't fit that model at all. And this right here set the stage for our first bias. First up is confirmation bias. This is our natural tendency to hunt for and favor information that, you guessed it, confirms what we already believe. The doctors back then were looking for evidence of bad air, not invisible stuff on their own hands. So Semmelweis's data was this really inconvenient fact that their brains just filtered out. Then you've got authority bias. We are just wired to trust experts and people in power. So when the top professors, including Semmelweis's own boss, scoffed at the idea, it basically gave everyone else permission to dismiss it too, no matter how clear the evidence was. They trusted the man, not the math. Now this next one is a huge one, belief perseverance. Our brains are basically hardwired to keep things the same. Changing a core belief is mentally exhausting and uncomfortable, so it's often way easier to just reject overwhelming proof than it is to rebuild your entire worldview from scratch. And finally, there's good old groupthink. Look, nobody wants to be the outcast. When the entire medical community decided Semmelweis was a crank, it became socially dangerous to agree with him. That desire to fit in and be part of the group just completely steamrolled the rational, life-saving alternative right in front of them. So this reflex is incredibly powerful.
And it's not just some relic of the 19th century. We saw it with COVID. It happens in business, in science. It happens in our personal lives. The real question is, what can we do about it? How do we learn to see what's right there in front of us? The Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman has a modern term for this. He calls it theory-induced blindness. The idea is, once we accept a theory, our brain uses it like a filter. And any fact that doesn't fit through that filter becomes, for all intents and purposes, invisible. To see it, you have to consciously take the filter off. Kahneman says we have two ways of thinking. System 1 is our fast, automatic, gut reaction thinking. And that's exactly where the Semmelweis Reflex lives. To beat it, we have to actively engage System 2, our slow, deliberate, analytical brain. Engaging System 2 really means doing the hard work of questioning our own beliefs. This means using mental strategies, sometimes called cognitive forcing tools, to deliberately challenge our assumptions and really consider other explanations. But as you can see here, this is an uphill battle. While these techniques can help, they are not a magic bullet. Our brains really, really love their shortcuts. Which leaves us with a final and honestly a pretty unsettling question. Semmelweis's discovery about hand washing seems so painfully obvious to us now. It really makes you wonder, 100 years from now, what life-saving, world-changing idea will people look back on and ask, how could they possibly have missed that? What are our blind spots today?